Thanks for participating in this program. I think that Brennan sent you a copy of a mediator's guide that I prepared, and in back of that is also some settings. Just so you know that when this whole COVID crisis broke out, I had a pretty big practice, got really worried, so I hired Simon Bowman from California, and we did a consult with him a couple of times. So a lot of the information that I'm using, I've learned from him, and I'm using in my practice. So the first thing I thought, I'm going to talk about three things. I'm first going to go through the settings that you should have on your profile. Everybody may want to do it differently, but I'll go through some of the settings that I use for security purposes, and then also just to make sure they're on so you can share documents, so you can open your breakout rooms. I'm going to share screen my settings in a moment. Then I'm going to talk to you about the pre-mediation call I have with people in terms of explaining Zoom to them, and then show you how to schedule a mediation. Is there anybody here that has not done a Zoom mediation yet? Put your hands up. All right, so there's quite a few of you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share screen. I'm going to go through my settings first. Here are my settings. Can everybody see them? Mark, can you tell me if they can see them?
Yes, you're good, Peggy.
Okay, so here are the settings. When you go into your profile, you'll go over here to your profile, and then you'll go down to settings. And these are all the settings, and I've given you a copy of these. So you'll want to go through your settings before you even set up a mediation. There are 64 settings. There are a lot of settings in Zoom. I'm just going to go through about 20 of them that I think that you need. So here they are. The first one that you have is, obviously you should have your host video on. The second is your participants video you should have on. Now, audio type, you should click the telephone and computer. From my experience, a lot of the insurance adjusters like to call in. They don't like to use their computer. So then they have the telephone option to come in. The next one is enable your personal meeting ID. You want that on. That personal meeting ID will be set by Zoom, so you have a personal meeting ID. The next one gets tricky. It's your PMI, it's your personal meeting identification setting. Now, Simon has this set up on, and he uses his phone number. So when he sets his mediations, his phone number comes up as his PMI. I turned it off just because I think it's for security setting. You shouldn't have your same PMI number on there, but you can use it. I think, Matt, you have your PMI as your phone number. Is that right?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so you can do that, and then it will always be in all your invitations if you want to do that, but I took it out for security setting. The problem with having a PMI, the other thing to think about, is then you'll have to set your own password, which I'm going to go down to in a minute. If it's off, if it's disabled, Zoom sets it, and then Zoom gives you your password. So that's where it's down here. It says use meeting password. I have it disabled because I'd have to set that. Okay, so the next one we're going to go down to is require a meeting password when scheduling a new meeting. That should be on because you want a password when you schedule your meeting. Require a password for instant meetings. You want that on. The next one is the embedded password in your meeting link. The reason you want this one on is because the password's then embedded in your invitation. So they don't have to put the password on when they click the link to come into your meeting. So that's why you want that on. The next one I put on, require a password for participants joining by phone. So if an insurance adjuster is calling in, they'll have to put a password in. I always mute participants when they enter because I don't want them talking to each other, especially in a mediation if they're both in the waiting room. I don't want them talking to another. So I mute them, and then I unmute them when everybody's together in the waiting room. Upcoming meeting reminder, you want that on. This required encryption for third-party endpoints, it's kind of confusing. This is a security measure to protect the data that's used in a mediation. There's a lot of articles out about this. It's way above my pay grade, but I was told to put it on, so I got it on. The next one is chat. So you can allow people to chat during the meetings if you want. So turn it on. I have it on so they can chat. Some mediations I don't allow them to chat. It depends on the people and it depends on the case. But if it's on, I would also click here to prevent them from saving the chats. You don't want them saving the chats, okay? So this means they can chat with everybody and everybody can see the chats going back and forth. Private chat, I disable so they can't have private chats with each other. I disable that. Matt, I don't know if do you keep that on? Do you allow them in Mark?
Yeah. I have it on, and if sophisticated users want to use that feature and chat privately, they can, but as a practical matter, I don't think people are using that. If they want to send a private message, they're usually just texting or emailing each other.
Yeah, same with me. I leave it on, but frequently it's not used.
Okay. Then I have this one where it says play a sound when somebody joins. I just have it on for me so I can hear when somebody hops on. I think that's just so I know someone's there. File transfer, you want that on in order to share documents during the mediation in the file share section. You want that on. The next one is co-host. I have co-host just so if you want to add a co-host in the mediation. I also have my secretary as a co-host, as an administrator, so she comes on the mediations with me in order to make sure everybody's there, make sure everybody knows what they're doing, but you can add a co-host. The next one, you always want to show your meeting toolbar. That's obvious at the bottom. You want to make sure everybody can see that. You want to show Zoom windows during your screen share, so you want to have that open. Screen sharing is really a cool thing on Zoom, and Matt's going to explain to you how to use it in a moment, but it allows you to share documents in the mediation, and you can sign the mediation agreement at the end of the mediation. He'll go through that. So make sure that's on. Make sure that under who can share, all participants is clicked. And then I also have who can start sharing when someone else is sharing. I have everybody, all participants, so everybody can share. The next one is annotation. Annotation allows you to sign documents, mark up documents. You can do a lot of cool things, check marks, stars, all kinds of cool things. Like here, I can go up here, and I can do a stamp, and I can do this. So I think that you'll show how that works, Matt. You also want your whiteboard on, so if you want to use your whiteboard. Oh, I have to get out of annotation now. Nonverbal feedback, I don't know, I have that on. Allow participants to rename themselves. So in a mediation, if you don't want to be Peggy Jones, you can rename yourself as mediator. You can rename yourself. You want to have that on for people to be able to do that. Report participants to Zoom. You want that on, so if somebody's misbehaving, that you can report them. I've never used that, never had that. Because we can lock our meetings, which we'll go through in a minute, people usually aren't zooming into our mediation, so I don't have a problem with that. Breakout rooms, important to have that on. You want to allow participants to go into breakout rooms when they're scheduled. And Mark's going to explain to you how to set up a breakout room, how it works, how to communicate in a breakout room. Virtual background, you want to click that because some people want to have a virtual background in case they have an icky office at home or they don't want to show their walls. And I've got you can change it during the mediation as well, but you want that on. What other one? The waiting room you want on. And you want to have it click it so all the participants can go into the waiting room. Email notification, I have when a cloud recording is available. I record some of these because I'm doing a lot of training, so I record it in cloud and it just tells me when it's available. The next one, when attendees join a meeting before you, you want to know if somebody joins before you to know if they're already in that room. I think that's about it. Those are all the settings. There's a lot of them. And then when anybody have any questions about these settings? Good. I don't
Peggy,
see.
can I just jump in real quick?
yeah.
We, my initial Zoom mediations, people were having trouble logging in because I had on my settings something called authentication, which if they didn't have the Zoom app, they had to enter their email address, and it was causing a lot of difficulty. So Mike actually was able to troubleshoot and figure that out. So if you want to scroll down to authentication, I don't know whether you have yours on or not. Let me
Do
see.
you know where it is?
Let's.
You just passed it. So if you go back up.
Above chat?
Yeah, right
Yeah.
there. No, that's.
Require encryption.
I don't think that was it. Was there?
I
Mike,
think
can you
maybe
help
it's
me
just
out?
a little bit
I think
higher from where
I
you
saw
were.
it earlier, maybe a little further up. Where was it? Only
Here it
authenticated?
is.
There it is.
Yeah, that's it. So don't use that. Peggy has it off, and that's a good idea because it just causes another layer of confusion getting in.
Hey Peggy, it's Matt. I have a question for you.
Hey, Matt.
How are you?
I'm good.
Have you had any people prefer to do their breakouts by cell phone as opposed to in just a separate breakout Zoom room?
No, but I've had insurance adjusters attend the breakout room on the phone. But no, I haven't had that problem. People, what I usually do though, we'll talk about it, Mark does it. I set up at my own breakout room, like extra rooms if people want to be in their own room and not with their client. I set up extra rooms. I've never had that problem. Anybody else?
I would really discourage it just because it just makes it another jump that you have to go to be able to talk to somebody.
All right, so I'll go to
Hi,
schedule.
Peggy,
Oh, yeah.
Deborah. I was surprised when you said you record the mediations.
Oh, no, I don't. I do it for, I'm doing some training I record, not mediation.
Okay. I just wanted to get clarification on that.
No,
I
yeah.
I think that's problematic.
Yeah, that's problematic. All right, so schedule a mediation. All you do is go up to your schedule a meeting. It's pretty easy, and you put in. I put in the topic. I put the name of the case, whatever it is, and then you just go down. I don't put anything in the description. I don't use a template. The time is the next thing when you're going to have it. I set it for 8 hours a day. But I have Zoom Pro, so I can go as long as I want to go. Make sure you have the time zone. I don't click registration. My meeting ID is generated automatically. My meeting password is generated automatically. My host is on the video. Your host is on, your participant's on. My audio is on for both the telephone and the computer. My meeting options are, I don't let people come on before me. So that's not clicked. I mute people when they enter. My waiting room's enabled. I don't pre-assign the breakout rooms because it doesn't work very well. I've had problems with it. I don't know if anybody else does it. I think, Matt, you've done it before, right?
I have not. What I'll do is right at the beginning of the mediation, I set the breakout rooms and assign the participants then.
Yeah. I don't think this works very well pre-signing them. And then you just hit save. If you want to add an alternative host, you can add the host here as well. But then you just save it, and that's pretty much how easy it is. And then you go down here, and then once it's saved, you copy the invitation and you cut and paste it and you send it to the lawyers. I always take out all the foreign phone numbers and just send them the link. I don't put all that gobbledygook that's in there, but that's it. Any questions?
Not a question, Peggy, but just another tip for anyone who'd like to. There is a plugin available from Zoom that'll plug in directly to Outlook. And that way you can schedule your meetings directly in Outlook without having to do the cut and paste. So if you want to
Yeah.
take one step further. There was another question that came in about which version of Zoom to use. And I know Deborah responded. Using Pro for $15 a month is, I'm going to say, more than well worth it. It's probably necessary because otherwise you're going to get a time limit cutting you off. And some of the other features, I don't even recall which ones they are not available unless you pay for the Zoom Pro.
And then if I can add to that, the latest version of Zoom, when you sign up for Zoom, the Pro program, you will be automatically sent to a place to download the Zoom app. The current version of the Zoom app is 5.0. It added some security features after concerns were raised earlier in the COVID-19 crisis. And so, but that process is all automatic when you sign up.
So what happened was after COVID came about, I had a bunch of mediations scheduled and we moved them over to Zoom. So one of the things that I did, and I still do it now, is I give the lawyers a choice and I say, would you like to have a pre-meet, because we've already done the pre-mediation phone conference, the mediation set up. So now I do pre-mediation Zoom conferences. So we have a Zoom for about 15 minutes phone conference, and we go over and I explain the Zoom controls, pretty much what we're going to do today. And I explain the security features to them. So that's one of the things that I do now is do a Zoom sort of a protocol pre-mediation phone call. And then I'm going to talk about what we talk about on that phone call in a minute because I don't want to duplicate the time. But so, I mean, I think these are pretty basic things to say about when you start your mediation, but, you know, get on there 15 minutes early and make sure your background's working, make sure that your computer's charged, make sure that your phone is charged. I always give people their phone number in that pre-mediation phone call because if something happens, they have to call you. And I have their phone numbers as well. And they always have my secretary's number to get a hold of her if we need help. Make sure you pick the right background. I mean, here's the virtual. You can stop this at any minute. If you go down to your video, you can just go up here and I don't want to have that anymore. I'm back home. So you can change your virtual video if you want. A lot of lawyers like to use them. It kind of makes it interesting when you meet new lawyers what background they have. And then you tell, make sure everybody turns off anything else running in the house that could interfere with your Zoom mediation. If you're working from home, inform, people that are in your house not to come into the room. And then I always just check my settings before I do mediation, just to make sure my secretary didn't change something or I didn't change something. So that's pretty basic, getting yourself ready for a mediation. And then when I start the mediation session, I go through the rules again. I set up like this. I explain to everybody who's here and make sure everybody introduces themselves just like you would in a real mediation. I explain the yellow box around my face. So when somebody else is talking, that yellow box is going to move to them. And then I explain to them that I'm going to lock the meeting. Everybody's here, so I'm going to lock the meeting, and you go down to the bottom and you actually lock the meeting. That means nobody else can get into this meeting. If you get locked out, if you leave inadvertently, or if you decide to just leave, you have to call me to get back in, and I have to unlock it and let you back in. So it's easy to do, but just understand that. That's why you make sure you have everybody's cell phone number. And then I remind everybody to give me their cell phone numbers to make sure we have them and their emails in case we have a malfunction on the technology. Then I explain the security features again. Unlocking the meeting. Everybody got a password to get into this meeting, and they got an invitation to this meeting, and that understand that nobody else can get in. And I confirm that nobody shared that email with anybody else, or the invite. And then I make sure everybody agrees to that before we start. And then I confirm that nobody's recording this mediation on their phone or on their computer. And I make sure everybody agrees to that. That's another security feature. I confirm that nobody else is in the room with any of the parties. I mean, obviously, kids are going to run through the room sometime, or spouses are going to run through, but I just make sure that nobody else is in the room and nobody else is allowed to be in the room during the mediation without the permission of everybody. And then I go over the Zoom controls, which, you know, obviously how mute works, how the video works. I'll go through the breakout rooms, and Matt will explain all that. So I explain all the controls to everybody. The breakout rooms, and then that's it. Like I said, I always have an extra room for myself in case I want to bring a lawyer in that wants to get out of their room. We have a private caucus. But that's pretty much it. I also have all of these in an agreement that I send to the parties now, that they have to sign it. It's part of my mediation agreement. If you're going to do a Z mediation, that you're agreeing to these features. I think that's important that people sign off on that. So that's all I have. Any other questions? David?
I have a comment, something that I let the parties know as well as they can.
Good.
And I don't know if we talked about this in front of the whole group or just as people were joining. You have the ability to change your name. You'll see your name appears down at the bottom of your box, and you can click on that, or no, up in the right hand corner of your box is a blue square with ellipses, and you can actually change your name. And some of you might notice that your name looks like my name. Not quite sure how that many Rebecca Wetzel's ended up here, but you can go and change your name to who you are. Or the mediators can add, what sometimes I do is I'll do Rebecca Wetzel mediator. Just today someone asked me if I should be addressed as Your Honor or something along those lines. So what I can be called is in the box.
I hope you said yes.
No, I didn't.
I just changed my name to mediator. It's really easy to do.
Peggy?
Yeah.
Two comments. First of all, one of the things that you said, I learned during a session the other day, you can't do, which is set a co-host at the time you schedule the meeting, unless they're part of your plan. You have to set the co-host during the meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
The other point is that when you do the pre-mediation, if you have counsel that have not used Zoom or aren't used to doing mediation in Zoom, I think it's worthwhile doing a little bit of a practice with them to go over more than just the rules, but show them how it's going to be done.
How do I set my name to something other than Rebecca Wetzel?
You don't want to be called Rebecca Wetzel today?
I'm honored, but it's a little confusing.
Okay, so up in the right-hand corner of your box
Yeah.
would be a little blue box. If you hover over it, a blue box with some ellipses. If you
No.
click on that, oh no, I guess
I have a
not.
little blue box.
No, it's not working. So then click on okay, someone help me out now. I can't change his name for him.
I've
Go
got it.
Participants, go to
Uh,
participants, and then you click on it and you click more, and then it will give you an option to rename, and a box should pop up in the middle of your screen, and you can change Rebecca Wetzel to your own name.
I'm not the host, so I don't have a participants icon.
Sir, I think I can help you. If you hover over your name or over Rebecca's name on your screen,
Uh-huh.
and then use the right click on your mouse
Rename.
and hit rename, and then just type in whatever you like there.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
That's better. Thank you.
Peggy, if you've been Peggy, I think you're talking, but you've been on mute.
Oh, you asked Robin how you lock a meeting. When you're the host, you'll have a security button at the bottom of your control, and you just press security and you press lock.
Why do you want to lock a meeting? It seems to me to create potential problems.
Want to lock a meeting because you don't want anybody else to jump into your meeting. Insurance adjusters are very, very reluctant to use Zoom mediation because they don't think it's secure, because they're hearing about all the Zoom bombing. You lock the meeting so nobody else can get in. It's a security feature.
But then invariably, there are technological glitches and people fall out.
It's really easy. I tell them at the beginning of the meeting, you have my cell phone number. If you inadvertently leave the meeting, get locked out, call me on my cell, I'll unlock it and you hop back in. It's very easy to hop back in.
Yeah, Nikki, we use that as the third line of defense to make the meetings private. The first is to require a password. The second is to require the participants to enter a waiting room before the mediator lets them into the meeting. And then just as an added, sort of third wall to keep it extra private, we lock the meeting once it gets started. But I suppose depending on your clients and their comfort level with Zoom, you may or may not need to do that if you decide that the technological barrier outweighs the added security feature. But at a minimum, I would use those first two, require a password and use the waiting room.
And if you're using the waiting room, do the participants automatically arrive in the waiting room when they sign on?
They do, and then you as the host have to let them into the meeting. You can do that all at once or one by one.
And that's...
And I do see Aaron raised his hand. I'm curious to see what AAA is doing or what your thoughts are about security.
We're just using the waiting room because we've had some trouble with locking the meeting and then someone inadvertently leaves and they're having trouble getting back in. And I agree, it's a great kind of third line of defense. But we've found just using the waiting room, nobody can enter into the meeting without being admitted by the host. So when that person comes back into the waiting room, we can either admit them or you could remove them or just leave them in the waiting room. So, if it's a concern about locking people out and them not getting back in, the waiting room's a nice feature because you control whether you admit them or remove them.
Jim McMonigal, can you hear now? I know you had a question. Can you hear?
Apparently not.
Couldn't hear. Is he mute? I don't know if he's having
He's
trouble.
not muted. This is Becky. I've been emailing him. He is not muted. He can't hear anything. So it's something with a setting on his end.
Okay. All right, we can move forward. We can start moving.
Jim, I'm sorry, Jim, you may need, there's a feature called Join with Audio. You may need to click on Join with Audio if you can find that.
I don't think he can hear you to say to get that, but thanks for trying. I'll type it to him.
Becky, maybe another thing what we always do is we get the cell phone number and somebody can go offline with them real quick and talk them through it. Might be
As
helpful.
soon as I can get him to respond, I'll do that.
Okay. All right, we can move on and we can start. I think that you're going to talk now, Mark.
Yes, I was going to say that's a pretty good segue to what we were talking about. Just a couple of things to follow up on from what Peggy mentioned. When you are, for some of you who aren't familiar with it at all, if you're listed as the host, you get a lot more features available than if you are simply a participant, including creating breakout rooms, which we'll see shortly. The other thing we were talking about, or that Peggy was talking about, was virtual backgrounds. I'm showing one here. They can also be a little distracting. If you move your hand quickly, things kind of disappear. And while they're a nice feature, you may discourage them just because they get to be a little, like I said, they break up a little bit. What some people choose to do is to buy a background to hang behind them, just a plain piece of cloth or something, make it a little simpler. If you have thoughts about doing it and you're looking online, you probably do not want to buy something that's called green chroma key, which is a green background that's great for displaying virtual images, but it's kind of glaring if you're going to use it as a mediator. Anyway, back to what my topic is. One of the two is waiting room. And the question was, I think maybe from Nikki, what happens when people sign in? When they first come on to your meeting, they will be put into a meeting room. And as a mediator, you probably want to use that feature because you don't want people showing up in what I'll call the common space or the main room until you've brought them in. You may end up with opposing parties in the room at the same time that you don't want, or opposing counsel at the same time that you don't want. Using the meeting room is just like at your office. You're going to admit people into your office from the waiting room and bring them into the main space. And you're able to do that by clicking on Manage Participants. That's the button at the bottom that says Participants, and then invite them in either one at a time or invite them all in at once, and they'll end up into the main room. The people who are in the waiting room do not know who the other participants are that are there. They just know that they've been placed in the waiting room and that they'll be joined to the conference shortly. They're muted from each other. They're just waiting for you to start it. And of course, that's a good reason for you to start the meeting on your own, maybe 5 minutes earlier, so that you can see them arrive and then bring them into the room as you'd like. Probably the most important feature for a mediator is the ability to create the breakout rooms. As I said before, the only way to do that is if you are the host. And I think Brennan is the host right now. He can move that over to me, which he just did, to make me the host. And when you are the host, there is a little icon, a little command at the bottom of the screen that says breakout rooms. And although I cannot show you that by sharing my screen right now, I've made up a series of screenshots to show you what it looks like. What you'll see in a typical setting like this, let me back up to my first screen. What you'll see at the bottom is that little command that says breakout room. Hopefully everybody can see that. I'm sharing my screen. But that will be the command that you'll see to create breakout rooms when you have the parties there. And again, that's the real meat and potatoes of how this gets done. You can create up to 50 breakout rooms. Unlikely you're going to need that many, but you can do that. Certainly you will want 2 if you're going to do any kind of caucusing. Peggy has recommended, and I think it's a good idea, to create 3, but you actually have a 3rd one that you can take a particular party into to add. And as I'll explain in a minute, you can create additional ones if you need to as you go along. Incidentally, the command is at the bottom of the screen. If you are already in the sharing mode, as I've got up here to share the screen, you'll find the breakout room command over in More rather than at the bottom of the screen. So once you do that, you'll have the command. You can create the breakout room. You can explain to people that that's what you're about to do. The default in Zoom is to create breakout rooms automatically. And so you'll see this little window in the middle of everything that says create rooms automatically. You probably don't want that. In this case, we were doing a practice yesterday. I was acting as the host. Brennan, Peggy, and Matt were the participants, and it wanted to create 2 rooms to assign those 3 people. So instead of using that method, click on the little radio button that says manual, and you'll be able to create the rooms manually. And in this case, we are creating 2 rooms, and all you do is change the number, say create rooms, and create the rooms manually. When you push that create rooms, you'll get the command that says that explains what these breakout rooms are and gives you the opportunity to assign people to the breakout rooms. We had talked a minute ago about doing it automatically where you assign them ahead of time. It really isn't necessary. When you click on the little drop down menu, you'll get the opportunity to assign people. So for instance here, I had the opportunity to assign Brennan or Matt or Peggy to breakout room number 1. In this case, I just clicked on Matt's name and put him into breakout room number 1. I took then Brennan and Peggy and put them into breakout room number 2. And at that point, everybody is where they're supposed to go. One thing you can do, and Peggy had recommended this, and I think it's a good idea, if you right-click over the name of the breakout room, you can change the name of it to plaintiff, defendant, party one, party two, just to make it easier for you to be able to reference where those people are. Once you've got everybody once you've got the rooms set up, you can then click on the open all rooms, and they will be then invited to join the room. You can do a setting that automatically puts them into a room. It's probably better just to have them join the room as they choose to. As the meeting is going on, if you want to move someone from one room to another, and this follows up on Peggy's suggestion about having a third room, you want to pull an attorney out of room number 2 and put him into room number 3 so you can speak to him privately, you'll be able to do that by hovering over these breakout room numbers. The parties can, while they are in the breakout room, hit a button, and you'll see it in a minute because we'll create some breakout rooms. Hit a button that says that they need help. And if that happens, a message will come to you as the host of the meeting, in this case as the mediator, saying that somebody needs help and you want to be able to communicate with them. You can then jump into that room. You'll also see a broadcast a message button. You can click on that. I use it to let people know that I'm moving from one room to another. So if I'm the mediator, I'm in the plaintiff's room, I don't want to surprise the defendants and just show up while they're talking about something. I'll broadcast a message that says, I'm changing rooms.
Where is the broadcast message?
Sorry, Nikki?
Where is the broadcast message icon?
Yeah, you won't see it on yours. You see it when you're the host of the meeting and you're actually moving from breakout room to breakout room. You'll have that opportunity. And what I'm going to suggest, and I'll tell you about it now, and you can do it when you'd like. Certainly, we're going to do a breakout room right now just to see what it looks like. But the best thing to do is find 4 other people, and I will volunteer to do it for anybody that would like. Find 4 other people and set up a practice mediation and try it so that you can see how it works when you're sitting on the host side of things. And that way you'll be able to see all those commands. There was a question?
Mark, I was just going to say, just so you understand, when you go from room to room, let's say you leave the plaintiff's room and then you go into the defendant's room, before you do that, you have a choice. You can go back to the joint session and then move into the room, or you can go right into the room. So you have to be aware of that. You can jump pretty quickly into the other room. I don't know if Mark, if you're going to explain all that.
No, go ahead.
It's just important to know that. That's why I always set up a mediator's room. So I leave a room, then I go to my room and I take just a minute, get my thoughts together, and then I leave my room and go to the next room. But if you don't set up a mediator's room, you just go back to the joint session if you want. But you can also just hop into their room. So there's a couple options there.
And then one other, when everything is done and you want to bring everybody back into the main room to sign an agreement, sing kumbaya, send them all on their way, whatever it's going to be, you'll find another that says to close the meeting rooms. And it will literally close them. They'll get a countdown timer in their meeting room that says, this room is going to close in 60 seconds. And you're all going to, it closes it and brings them all back. Another really useful tool in Zoom generally, and keep this in mind, they have a set of video tutorials that can take any of these subjects and you can pick them up and in 3 minutes watch some of it. So if you forget it or you don't want to come back to our recording, go to their video tutorials. I meant to mention earlier on, you can find those at their primary website, the www.zoom.us. You will not find them when you sign into your own account, but look for them there. So having said that, we'll do a practice breakout room. I'm going to take this entire group, break you up randomly into 3 different rooms and just jump from one to the other so that you can see what it looks like. So my first job will be to click on that button down at the bottom that says breakout rooms. And I'm going to take what's showing here as 39 participants and break you into 3.
That's a lot of work, Mark.
Yeah, well, I'm going to use the automatic button and just break it into 3 separate rooms. I you will see that you will be in 3 separate breakout rooms. When I hit the button, open all rooms, that's where you'll go.
You'll get a message too. You'll get a message that you're going.
Come on, Matt, tell us a joke.
Yeah, that's right. So a mediator walks into a bar. No.
I feel special because we're in breakout number 1, baby.
Yeah.
Come on, Daryl Clay.
We're number 1. I like it.
So just to give you the idea, this whole group is in breakout room number 1. Nobody in rooms 2 or 3 can hear me or do anything else. You can hear each other, do whatever you need to do there. You'll see that if you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, share screen is available. So if you wanted to share a document among each other, you can still do that. You will all be stuck in this room until we get out. So I'm going to leave this room. And
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
Before you leave, there's also a button at the bottom that says ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to mention that?
Yeah, and that shows up, I think, in the, well, I think you have it, and I'm not sure, or is it manage participants?
I think we have it once we're in the breakout room. What I've been using is that sends a message to the host, who is usually the mediator, saying, we're ready for you, come back into our room. So if the mediator leaves and they need you for some reason, if they click ask for help, the mediator gets a quick note saying room number 1's asking for you.
Yeah, and if as the mediator I respond to that, it takes me to whatever room it was that the help request came from.
Yeah.
Okay, see you guys later.
He's leaving us on our own.
He is.
Mediators gone wild.
I've not used these breakout rooms when I've done these. Do you typically just create the breakout room maybe after the opening session and just leave the breakout rooms up?
Yeah.
Or do you switch back and forth between breakouts and a general session?
So Matt, here's what I've been doing is when everybody gets assembled in the waiting room, I take like 60 seconds, maybe less, and create my breakout rooms there and then assign people to their specific rooms. And I do that because you can only assign people after they've joined your meeting. So you can't pre-assign, or at least I haven't found out a good way to do that. So what I do is once everybody's in the waiting room, I leave them there for just 1 extra minute, create the rooms, pre-assign, plaintiff and plaintiff's counsel to their room, defense counsel and the insurance adjuster to their room, the third party lien holder to another room, whatever the case may be. And then your rooms are all teed up. So after the joint session, then you can, I think it's called open all rooms. You click that button and then everybody gets an invitation to join their room, just like we just got one now.
And then the reverse is true, so that if you want, after you've done join all rooms, you hit breakout again and it splits everybody up again?
Yeah, well, everybody goes to their respective rooms. You can close all the breakout rooms and bring everybody back into the joint session. That's one click of a close all rooms button. Or you can manually move people around.
Okay.
And that it can be done. It takes a little practice and getting used to, but it's helpful. Like if you want to pull the 2 attorneys out and bring them into a third room, you can do that, but you have to do it one at a time.
No.
And it just takes a little practice.
No, but what as Mark was marching through this, I saw the join all rooms button. What I didn't see, and it's just for efficiency's sake today, is a send everybody back to their breakout room. Is there such a function when you're in the joint session to send them back to their breakouts?
Yeah, so what you can do is each participant will then have a breakout room control at the bottom of their screen. And if you've assigned them to a particular room, that room shows up as an option for them. So if I'm plaintiff and you're defendant, the mediator is giving each of us those rooms. So what I've done is just asked everybody, hey, go to your breakout tab and pick your respective room, and then I'll meet you over there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, but I don't think you can send everybody there at once after you do that the first time.
Got it. Thank you.
I think practice is the key, and we'll make this offer hopefully when we come back into the joint session, but I know Mike Bigelow, Rebecca Wetzel, and I, as the 3 court mediators, we are always available if you guys want to practice and use us as guinea pigs before you do one of these court cases. So reach out to us. We can jump on for 10, 15 minutes longer, whatever you need, and you can practice moving us around to breakout rooms, convening a mediation, whatever would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, you're way ahead of the Court of Appeals because I've got a Court of Appeals mediation next week and it's just by phone.
Oh yeah, we started our first couple weeks during the shutdown. We were doing them by phone, but now we've been doing Zoom for a few weeks now. It's going pretty well.
Matt, is that in the 8th?
Yeah.
I thought Dave was starting to do Zoom mediations, and I know they're starting Zoom oral arguments on the 12th.
Well, when they set up this particular mediation, they set it up by phone. I'm not sure why, but they did. That's fine. Doesn't matter.
Looking good, Matt.
Thanks, Dan. How you been?
Good.
Let me chime in with a question to Matt Menace, if I could. There was a comment earlier that adjusters are being resistant to doing the Zoom mediations. I understand the security concerns. From a matter of practicality, what are you doing with them? What do you recommend we do with potentially recalcitrant adjusters?
Yeah, so what we found is there's a couple of insurance companies, State Farm and Geico are the 2 that I've encountered, where they have a corporate policy that does not let their adjusters participate via video mediations. So what we're having them do is either call in using Zoom's phone number and participate that way, or join by video but turn their camera off so that their image is not being broadcast. And that seems to be a workaround.
Okay.
All right. So we just got a notice that Mark's closing the rooms. So I don't think we have to do anything. I think if we just passively sit here, Mark will transport us all back to the joint session. Yeah, we've got 60 seconds. So Chris, on that.
Brennan?
Okay, hopefully everybody's coming back into the main session. You get an idea of how that works. See how many we have back in.
Brennan?
Yes.
Neither Bart Bixenstein nor I received the Peggy's handout. Can I don't know what your email is for us.
I can email it to you right now, sure.
Okay, thanks.
Again, that's the process that you would use for caucus. My suggestion: check the Zoom video help. It shows you essentially what we just went through in about 3 or 4 minutes. And if anyone wants to do some practice meetings, feel free. I'll volunteer. Find some other friends and put one together. With that, I think I will kick it to Matt, who's going to talk about sharing screens.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark. And I know I offered to my small group when you broke us up, and I can speak on behalf of Rebecca and Mike Bigelow as the 3 court mediators. If any of you who are volunteering to do these cases for our court need practice and want guinea pigs, reach out to the 3 of us. We'd be happy to help, talk you through the technical issues or have you practice putting us into breakout rooms, because really just practicing and using Zoom is the key. It's a pretty good platform and it's pretty intuitive, but like anything else, it just takes practice. And so let us know if we can be your guinea pigs. We're happy to. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 2 things. I'm going to talk about the chat feature, which some of you have already started using during this meeting, and then I'm going to talk about screen sharing. And sort of like Mark, I created a document that I'm going to use to help walk us through that. So I'm going to screen share that document, and that way you can see what these features look like. So at the bottom of your screen, the Zoom controls have two icons. One is the chat feature, and one is the screen share. They're next to each other on my controls. And I blew them up so you can see what they look like. So the gray bubble is chat, the green box with an arrow is the screen share, and they are located at the bottom of your screen. This is how it looks on mine. I'm going to talk about chat first because it has a couple of features that you may not realize it has, and then we'll talk about screen sharing. So the chat feature works at its most basic level, kind of like instant messaging or text messaging. It's a way for you to type in a message and have that broadcast to either one individual or to the group. The key to remember about the group, or what they call everyone, is that everyone is only everyone who's in that room at that particular moment. So if you try to chat everyone and somebody has left the room or not joined the meeting yet, they're not going to get the message. It's only to everyone who is in that room at that moment. And when you click the chat feature, so you click that icon at the bottom, and everybody, if you want to do that now, it will bring up this screen on the side of your screen.
Wow.
Yeah, so you click chat and it opens up this separate window to the right of your screen that looks kind of like, you know, it's an asynchronous communication screen like text messaging or instant messaging. And what I've done is blown up at the bottom. You can see it on your own, but blown up at the bottom are your controls. And so the first is who you want to send a message to. Everyone is the default, but if you want to send a private message to somebody else and the Zoom host allows that, the drop down there will show that. And then right below that says type your message here. That's an open field where you can type a message, and then to send it, you just hit return or enter, and that will broadcast it to the group. The second feature that the chat has is that it allows you to upload a file. And I'm showing that here on my screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go leave this training document, go back to the group chat, and I'm going to demonstrate both of those things. I'm going to show how to send a message to everybody. So you should get a message from me momentarily. And then I'm also going to upload a document so you can see what that looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do, because you guys have already been sending messages to each other, so you know how to send a text message where you can say, I've got to run to the restroom, or I have a CMC at 2 o'clock, so I'll need to step away for 15 minutes, or my client's running late, or whatever message you want to send, you can type that in. The other cool thing you can do is you can put links to websites. And so I just sent everybody a message, hopefully you got it, which is a link to Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas website. And that way, if a website or something is referenced during the mediation, you can group chat that to everybody, and then everybody will have it. The other thing that you can do by group chat is to upload a document. And this is where we're hitting our first technical glitch, I think. And maybe it's a setting with this particular training. But the way Peggy recommended your settings be, and the way I have it set up for my mediations, is that you are allowed to upload documents in the group chat. And I don't know, Brandon, if that's...
Yes, that is the issue. This meeting was set up not to allow file sharing by chat.
Okay.
So as we learned from Peggy at the beginning, that's a setting that you need to switch when you initially set up the meeting.
Yep. So I'm going to go back to my training document to show you what that looks like, because it's super cool and super useful during a mediation to be able to do that. So if that feature was enabled, and you would want to set that up in your settings before you convene the mediation, then it has this file button here. And by clicking that, you can upload a file right into the chat feature. So if you have an expert report, a damages audit, a photograph, anything you want to share with each other, you can share it in real time in the chat feature, and that way you don't have to fish around for somebody's email address or other way to contact them. So enable the file sharing feature on the front end, and then you and the participants will be able to do that in real time during the mediation. All right, and then the other thing is, so enable file sharing, but also disable people from sharing the chat, because you want to preserve the confidentiality of the mediation process. And I know Peggy mentioned that at the beginning as one of the settings. So chats, when the mediation ends, the chat disappears, and that helps preserve the confidentiality of the process. Any questions about chats before we move on to screen sharing? Okay, so the second cool feature about sharing documents in Zoom is screen sharing. That is what I'm doing right now. It's what Mark did earlier when he was showing his training document. The
Do
way
I
you do
understand
that-
correctly that you can only chat with someone in your same room?
Oh, yes. Nikki, that's correct.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
you're in
and-
the room.
Yeah, so sometimes people get mistaken. After you leave your joint session and you go into the caucus room, somebody tries to send a chat to everybody, not realizing it doesn't get to the mediator or to the other party unless they're in that room with them at that moment.
I have a question, Matt, before you move
Yes,
from
Deborah.
chat. It really is for Peggy, who I think in the initial setup disabled private chat.
Right. So
And-
private chatting then speaks to the ability to send a chat one-on-one, not to broadcast everybody, but between two individuals in a mediation.
Right, which means the lawyer and the client, for example, could not use the chat function between themselves when they're in a larger setting.
Right. I know Peggy and I have talked about this a bunch, and we've kind of gone back and forth on it. It's like everything else in life. It's a risk reward type situation. And, there's a convenience to be able to do that. There's also a chance that somebody who's not familiar with the technology might inadvertently, share a chat saying, hey, that mediator, Matt's a real jerk. Can we get out of this? And they may not want me to hear that. So if they're comfortable using the technology, I leave it on so that they can do it. But I don't really highlight it as a feature because I don't want to invite trouble if somebody inadvertently, hey, my bottom line's 25, don't tell the other side. And
I
then,
see. You're
I just-
protecting them from
I just
themselves.
did it.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's right. But you can also, they can text with each other as well.
Yeah.
The client and the lawyer, it's probably a safer way to go because I've had it where somebody used it and it was not good.
Matt, also, if you don't have private chat on, you have to have an alternative method to file share where one of the parties wants to share a file with the mediator, but not the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have private chat on, you can do chat to an individual privately through chat, and the other parties won't see it. But if you don't have private chat on, it's got to be done through another method. Just thought that should be pointed out.
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate that. And I think if you're in private caucus with the parties and they chat it to the whole group, that's one way to sort of work around it. But I agree with you. I think if you have leave that setting open, it does let them send you a document privately as the mediator, which sometimes they want to do that for mediators' eyes only.
Can that be disabled during the mediation, or does it have to be set at the beginning and that's the end?
So that's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. If you can,
I have looked around a
disable
little
chat
bit.
in real time.
Sorry, Matt. I believe it has to be set at the beginning. I have not found a way as a meeting host where I can go in and change to allow different levels of chat or to allow file sharing.
Are you the host right now, Matt?
No, I think Brandon's the host still, right?
I am, yeah. I can make Matt the host.
No, I was just going to say on the host chat button, can you do anything with that? your chat button to stop that?
Not in the chat button, no. I can only send to the group or send to individuals.
Okay. I'll look it up while you keep talking.
Okay, great. Yeah, I suppose the workaround is always you could just ask the parties to stop using chat if you feel like it's distracting or not working for some reason. And then Peggy, if you get any update on that, let us know. In the meantime, in the interest of time, let's go back to screen sharing and we can talk about that. So I'm gonna start screen sharing my screen sharing training document with you. Screen sharing is the controls found at the bottom of your screen. It looks like that green box with a little arrow. When you click that, you don't immediately start screen sharing, so don't be afraid to click it. What you do is it brings up a separate window that looks like this that has all of your open documents or open applications. So it gives you a menu of documents or applications that you might want to screen share with people. The key here is that you can only screen share a document or an application that's already open on your computer. So if you or a participant to the mediation wants to share something, like a photograph, a medical bill, an expert report, an audit, I would recommend that they open that document on their computer before the mediation begins. That way, when they go to the screen share feature, it will show up as one of the documents that they are allowed to share with everybody. If not, they end up sort of, fishing around and fumbling around trying to find the document, and it just creates a little delay.
Matt?
Yes, Deborah.
Recently, I experienced a situation where someone screen shared their desktop, and the desktop included specific named documents that really we shouldn't have been seeing.
Yep.
So when you say you're limited to things that are open, I'm questioning that only because of this incident where the desktop was revealed.
Yep. So it's a very good point, Deborah, and it was the next point that I was going to make, which is the flip side of preparing and opening documents that you want to share. Get those ready in advance so that they're available for you. The flip side is if there's something you don't want to share, you want to close that or hide that in a folder, because your desktop, however it looks, if it's got a picture of your dog or it's got a website that you were browsing before the mediation began, if there's something that's on your desktop, you might inadvertently share that because the desktop is one of the applications that's always open on your computer and can always be shared. So I'll take a risk here because I don't know what's on my desktop, but let me see. I don't think there's anything too bad, but I'm going to share my desktop for you just to see what that looks like. Whoops, this is still that document here. Let me try that one more time. Let's see what that looks like. No, it keeps sharing, and I apologize for that because I've done that inadvertently before as I was playing around with other features. But there is, if you do have the option to share your desktop, and I think the takeaway would be is if there's something you don't want shared on your desktop, like a sensitively named file or a photograph or an embarrassing website you were browsing, close those before the mediation begins. I'm going to switch gears real quick and show you a different.
I have another question. I'm sorry, I have another question.
Yeah,
from
shoot.
the group. Ian Frank, you have your hand up. If you would like to you're unmuted if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, appreciate that. I wanted to just clarify with Matt whether or not the function of how you attach or share your screen is also true of sharing a file in the chat function. If that's enabled, do you have to open that, or will you go directly to your C drive or some other function where you can then select from a broader group of files?
So for sharing documents in the chat feature, it's the latter, it's the second one. So it's the same as if you were trying to attach a document to an email. You can browse your documents, your whatever drive they're on or whatever folder they're in, and then you can privately select the document you want to share before you upload it to chat.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, it's really very much, it feels very much like trying to attach something to an email. And it does not have to be open as long as it's accessible through your computer or your shared drive. Okay, so I've shared a screen here, which is the Cuyahoga County's website, the court's website. This is also the link that I shared with you in the chat feature earlier. As you can see, you know, as I move around the website, you guys are hopefully seeing what I'm seeing, which is me navigate this particular website. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you too, Deborah, before. You can see, hopefully, towards the top of that website, the other tabs that I have open. I have my email tab and I have the docket open. If I had something like, you know, handsomemediators.com or something, and you guys I didn't want you to see that, I would be advised to close that tab before I started sharing. That being said, I'm going to scroll down to this part of the website for two reasons. One is to show you that the court has COVID-19 updates on their website, and we actually have a section that deals with dispute resolution that's on there. These are all subject to change, so you and your clients are encouraged to check back frequently. But we have put a note here about using Zoom. We've also put contact information for the three mediators, Rebecca, me, and Mike, as well as the email address for our general mailbox. Once you start screen sharing, one of the cool things that you can do is annotate. And to get to annotate, there are controls at the top of your screen. If you hover your mouse towards the top, it brings up a little pencil that says annotate. When you click annotate, it gives you the option of different ways that you might want to annotate. If you want to highlight something, if you want to draw an arrow or a marker.
So Matt,
yeah, go ahead.
I think on our screens, you don't have to, you get a view options menu box, and then you can choose annotate instead of to get the menu. Okay.
Yep, and I have my settings, and I think this meeting, it looks like too, has it set up so that anybody can annotate. So I see somebody drew a circle over there. I'm using one of these sort of very neat circles that they have preordained for us. And you can see that I've made a red circle around our email addresses because that's something I wanted to highlight or bring to your attention. I see other people are.
That permits you to do that.
So that's a setting, Nikki, that you can allow everybody to annotate. And then it's particularly helpful if you are in the process of trying to draft a document jointly, or if you're working on something together. And I will say that as the host, you then have the ability to clear everybody's annotations. I guess what I'll ask Brennan, if he's the host now, would you go ahead and just clear off everybody's annotations, and then we'll move on to the next document? I'm going to stop sharing while we do that. Perfect.
What do you want me to do, Matt?
I think it's actually fine because I stopped sharing.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see a button for that, and then it went away. So.
Yep. But I'll show you one example of something you can do with a shared document that is just really neat, which is here. Peggy Foley-Jones, myself, Doug Godshall from Stark County, and then Kathy Geyer from the Supreme Court did a mock mediation, and we filmed it, and hopefully that video will be available to share with you guys shortly. But at the conclusion of that mock mediation, we drafted a memorandum of understanding between and among the parties. This is a screenshot of the signature block at the end of that document. And then using the annotating feature, everybody was able to sign or initial the document as a way of concluding the mediation. So that's a fun and helpful way that you can memorialize an agreement even if you're mediating virtually. I know other people may have access to DocuSign or other, platforms that enable electronic signatures. But if you don't, and as a workaround, you can use the share screening feature and then the annotating feature to create a document that everybody signs and memorializes as a way of concluding the mediation. I'm going to close this and ask if anybody has any questions about screen sharing.
Where is, I don't see the annotating feature. Where is that?
Yep. So Nikki, I think it only shows up when I'm actively screen sharing, and then it should be at the top of your screen. If you hover
And it
your mouse,
doesn't.
is that,
So what
Rebecca, where it shows up for you?
So it shows there's view options, I believe is what it calls. There's a little box.
Yeah.
There's a green box that says Matt is sharing a screen, and then next to it is another box, a drop-down menu that gives you options, and one of them is annotate option.
Yep, hold on. I think I can show you what that looks like in this training device. Yep.
Okay, where is view options?
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're sharing. Nikki, at the very top of the screen, you see the green box that says you are viewing Matt's screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then next to it, is there a box that says view options?
No.
There's not.
No.
If you hover your mouse over that green bar that says the screen sharing piece, it should bring up another menu of options that includes annotate.
Well, I see at the top of your, the page you've put up, there is a pen and a box that says annotate.
Yeah, so this part right here is the way your screen should look when you or somebody else is screen sharing. There's a green box that tells you that somebody's screen sharing. And then when you hover your mouse near that area, it will bring up this annotate control, which is this guy right here.
I see. Okay, I see where the annotate control is.
Yeah, so the default is that you don't have annotating tools on your toolbar. But once you are actively screen sharing with somebody, you can click annotate, and then that enables you to annotate. And I see a number of people have figured that out because there's a lot of good doodling or artistry going on with our screen share right now.
Mechanically, how do you draw on the document?
Once you've enabled annotating by clicking that button, then there's all these controls that are right here that allow you to type in text, to paint with a paintbrush, to draw arrows. There's different ways that you can do
I
it.
see. Okay.
And it, like everything else on Zoom, practice is the key. So you might want to practice at home sharing a document and then just annotating it up.
And incidentally, if you have a touch-sensitive screen, you can just use your finger. So
Yes.
Right on it also.
That's right. Thank you, Mark. Nikki, any other questions about screen sharing?
No, thank you.
Okay. So that's all I have for screen sharing and chat. I would say in addition to breakout rooms, which is the best feature about Zoom, being able to break out and meet and caucus with everybody, I think screen sharing is the second best. It's a really helpful way that you can show documents that you might show somebody, across the table if you were sitting there in person, but it lets you do it virtually in a way that is really helpful.
I
So,
looked up the
Peggy, yep.
chat function. The host can change the chat function during the meeting. All they do is go to their chat feature, they click chat, click more, and it gives you 4 options.
Yep, great. And then I see Ian raised the question, can the host save the shared document after the signatures have been affixed? And yes, there's a save button, you can click that. You can also take a screenshot of the screen. And then that's what we did in our case, is one of the participants took a screenshot and then immediately chatted it to everybody else in the group so that we could download it and have it for our files.
Yeah, can I interrupt you 1 second? You guys, I have a meeting at 2 o'clock, but thank you very much. I will watch the rest of this when it gets posted. But thank you all.
Thanks for joining, Brian.
Actually, I think we are about at the end of our presentation. unless anybody has questions or concerns.
I have
Mark?
one question.
Yeah, Mark, there's one question for you from Robin Wilson about whether or not you can put parties into breakout rooms directly from the waiting room.
You know what? I don't think you can do it from the waiting room. You can assign them to rooms directly. In other words, before the meeting starts, you can say, I want plaintiff and plaintiff's counsel in meeting room 1, defense and defense counsel in 2. And I don't know if they land in the meeting room. I think they still land in the meeting room first, but then they'll get assigned directly to those when you set up the rooms.
I think so too. So what I've done, Mark, in that case, I have one case where the parties needed to be separated. I let one side out of the waiting room first and then immediately put them into their caucus room. And then I did the same with the other side.
I have one question going back a little bit. What is it that is anticipated to be on the Ohio Supreme Court's website next week?
We're going to have our video up that shows the mock mediation when it's ready. But
Okay.
they also have some information to do mediations on the website now.
But my question was, is there a document available to anybody on the internet that provides instructions similar to what you prepared, Peggy, called Mediator's Guide to Using Zoom?
I'm not aware of a document and instructions like that other than the tutorials on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I have a question about the cases. You said that there would be cases assigned within the next week or so. Are these being assigned similar to what we see in the fall during mediation week or whatever it's called?
Okay, I'm happy to answer that question, and I do have a 1:30 myself, so let me try to, there's 2 phases for what we're going to be using your volunteers for. Phase 1 is happening right now. We're setting up settlement weeks, May 18th through the 29th. I have about, I think 20 mediator volunteers on that list. Those types are very similar to what we do in the building in the fall settlement day. You will get, if you have been a volunteer mediator, I will contact you via email, give you the case caption and number so you can do a conflict check. When you get all clear, I send you and the parties a notification of the settlement day, of the notification of a settlement week hearing, and assign the day, just the day. It's up to the mediator and the parties to agree on a time and what kind of platform. If the mediator isn't using Zoom but some other video platform, use that. And so then it becomes the parties. And once I've officially given you the email to assign the mediation, it's up to the mediator and the parties to get the date. I also provide a mediator's report that you would complete after the mediation to send back to me. Then there's phase 2, which will be the initiative where we have most of you have volunteered on the list, those are a little bit more complex cases. We're getting the documents and the system ready. Cases will be coming in once the judges have been made aware of it and are starting to refer them. I have set aside a case or 2 for that, but those cases the cases I've set aside aren't supposed to be heard until August, so by court order. So that is we don't have anything in the pipeline for the next 2 weeks yet. That could happen once the judges start referring them and the program is completely in place. It's almost there.
To a certain extent, it's a work in process. Agreements, documents, reporting documents are being circulated. And part of our thinking here was, let's get the program in place and get it started, and we'll fine tune along the way, because our goal really is to get these cases to everyone who's volunteered and start getting them heard.
I don't know if anyone has seen Nancy Gravinsky's question, but I will read that. What will we get from ADR? We'd get the file on a summary sheet under normal circumstances, and will we get a sample agreement?
Okay, that is, you will get a sample mediators report. The sample agreement, no. You will, if the parties want to do something with the screen share, how that happens, that no. The mediators will get the case caption, the case number. The parties are instructed to provide the mediators with a mediation summary form, each side a summary form. So you have the basics. The case number would allow you to get online and look at the online docket to read the complaint, the answer, and any motions if you would like. And the mediator's report would be for the mediator to fill out upon the completion. There's nothing, we're not requiring the parties sign any agreement. If they want to sign an agreement, you can make arrangements in the mediation with that. And I'm certainly happy to facilitate if you need it on an individual basis. That is for the first phase, phase 1. Phase 2 will have more clear directions. There's going to be a mediator's agreement. There's going to be other things in phase 2.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. You know, Matt Morita's question earlier is just kind of like our in-person settlement days. Phase 1 is very much that. These are the cases that, you know, you would mediate when you volunteer in settlement days in the fall in years past. And then as far as what Rebecca said, if the parties want to memorialize an agreement, that's really between them. And so your job is to help facilitate their negotiations. But if they reach an agreement and want to memorialize it, they can do that in any way that they see fit.
Okay, is there anything else, any summary, or is that it?
I'd just like to thank everybody who's volunteered. I mean, Zoom is a tool for us to use as mediators. You still have to apply your good skills as mediators to the parties and hopefully clear out what looks to be a logjam down the road. So again, thanks to everybody who volunteered. We've got 44 really strong mediators. If we, over the next 8 months, knock out even half of those cases, we'll make a real significant impact on what the dockets look like. So thank you all again. Anybody has any questions, concerns, contact any of us and we'll be glad to help you out.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you,
so
Mark.
much. We will follow up with sharing this video link. And yeah, I thank you to everyone who is participating in this program and to the organizers of the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.